Hello, everyone. It has just turned 4 o'clock here in London, in the UK, where I'm based. So it's time for us to start this month's Trinity College London Transformative Teachers webinar. And as always, I'm very pleased to be back here. I missed the last one, but I'm glad to be back this time. And I have to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because we've got colleagues joining us from all over the world today. I've tried to keep a list of where you're all from. So we've got the KSA, Ukraine, China, Mexico, Italy, Vietnam, Uruguay, Poland, the UK, Ireland, Argentina, Turkey. I think someone joined from Côte d'Ivoire as well. So a really, really interesting group of people to be working with today. So welcome to everybody. Just before I introduce today's guest, a little bit of housekeeping. Some of you will know this already. We're going to be here for about 1 hour today. There will be time at the end of the talk to ask questions. And we will be recording this as well to put up on the Trinity College London Transformative Teachers website. So if you drop out because of connectivity, or you have to run off to do some lessons or mark some urgent homework, don't worry, this is being recorded. Hopefully you're very familiar with what we're using here for the recording and for the webinar. Do feel free to play with all of the tools, and we want you to interact. So I see lots of you are using the chat box already, which is fantastic. And I can see this is where people are telling us where they are from. So please keep using that. You can see it's moving quite quickly because we have a lot of people here today. So if you have any questions that you'd like answered from our speaker, it might be best to use the Q&A function, which will be somewhere around in the menu. So have a click of all the buttons and make sure you can find that one, and we will ask them as we go on. And as I said, there'll be time at the end for questions. But that's enough from me. You're not here to listen to my voice today. I'd now like to introduce our guest, who is Teresa Gallette, and she's based in the Dickens Institute in Uruguay. And she's been involved in TESOL since 1986. And among many roles during that time, and at the moment, she's a teacher trainer on the CERT TESOL, the TILEC, and the DIP TESOL courses. And so she's bringing a wealth of experience today from the classroom and from the training room. And she's going to talk to us today about unleashing creativity through play-based learning. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand over to you, Teresa.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And let me see, we are going to start sharing my screen. There we are. Just give me a second. I am making sure that everything is working fine. Okay, good. Well, here we are. It's a pleasure to be sharing this topic with all of you from around the world. Thank you, Trinity, for the opportunity, and the Dickens Institute here in Uruguay for allowing me to share this topic. Well, all right. Today we are going to have a look. This is our session today. We are going to have a look at what play-based is and isn't. We are going to see that there is a purpose for playing. We are going to have a look at creativity, and most importantly, that all of our students can follow this type of work and how to assess what we are doing. So we are going to start asking you, why do you play as an adult? Would you like to type in the chat box so we can see, why do you play as an adult? Good. To relax, to rest, for fun. Good. To escape. Right, to have fun. Good. All right. That's fantastic. To socialize, to explore options, and not to forget my childhood. And look, these are the things I have. I have thought about, and I think that most of the ones you mentioned are here. Of course, that playing relieves stress, boosts creativity, depending on the game that we are playing. Socializing, improving relationships, hope that not to spoil relationships, take ourselves out of the routine, and of course to have fun. And this is what we try to do with this method in our lessons. Play is a very difficult notion to define because it occurs naturally in among our children. Play is a way of doing things, okay? But play is not just fun. We want to have a purpose. We want our students to learn something. It's not just spending some free time in class. So learning, also play drives discovery, because we need to produce certain type of activities that really promote exploration and develop creativity. And of course, other thing is to solve some problems. So I wanted to share something that Carla Rinaldi, president of the Radio Children, says that play and learning goes together. It's like the two wings of a butterfly. One cannot exist without the other. And I think that that's true. Playing, but also learning. That is what we need to do. So let's have a look at what play-based learning is. Well, of course, play-based learning is a valuable teaching method, as playing and exploring, okay, is one of the characteristics of effective learning. It's recognized, we all know that young children learn best when they are given an appropriate level of responsibility and autonomy and in their own learning, which means that they are allowed to make errors, decisions, choices, okay? This is very important. Nobody is going to judge if they are making a wrong choice, if they are making mistakes. They are not going to have repercussions of wrong actions. Play-based allows young learners to explore, to experiment, to discover at their own pace. And that is very important because they are going to have time and they are going to cooperate and they are going to have the possibility of progressing, moving forward at their own pace. And not less important is that play-based allows young learners to develop these cognitive, social, emotional, and physical skills and hands-on activities. When students are doing, when children are doing things with their hands, they are going to feel that learning is not just, learning English is not just the language of the book, that they can do things from their real lives. All the activities are going to be absolutely relatable. Play-based can be structured or unstructured, but it focuses mainly on fostering curiosity and engagement to make learning more holistic, and of course enjoying the process. It's a method which is commonly used in early childhood education, but can be beneficial at various developmental stages. Something that I would like to share before going on is that here in Montevideo, in TILEC, this is one in the TILEC course, Trinity TILEC course, is one of the types of lessons that we encourage trainees to follow, as they can really feel the development of students learning and playing at the same time. And Stokes, who is the director of the experience of playing games as a field trip, okay? And he says, field trip, we are going to give them in advance the expectations of what they are going to see, what they are going to do during that time. And then we are going to give them time to explore, to find, to enjoy in the classroom. We are going to discuss together with them all the connections that they could have made during that time. Emphasizes how games, like field trips, engage students to help make learning more meaningful by connecting hands-on experience with the academic content that we want to develop in class. Something that it's absolutely important to understand is that play-based is not just playing without a purpose. I'm going to insist on this because in the abstract of my talk, that is one of the main concerns that teachers may have. And we want to emphasize this situation that although we are having fun, our students are learning. That's why sometimes we have this wait. Look at this picture. Play and no work. That is what some parents may say when they see or listen to their children coming out of the school and asking, "What did you do today, my dear?" "Nothing. We played." And they start wondering, is it true? Are they just playing and doing nothing? Well, all right. This is something that we need to have in mind. The mere presence of the word play, all right, as we have in this teaching method, is an alarm for parents. And sometimes with some supervisors who are not really aware or be in contact with this concept. We are going to see that play-based is another different thing. It's not just playing for the sake of pure enjoyment. Look at this. This is not. We have to make a very clear difference between free play and play-based learning. Free play is unstructured. Students choose what to do freely without adult intervention. And when I'm saying intervention, of course, that may be an adult in the class looking at students, at children, that they don't run any dangerous risks. But the adult in the class is not taking part of that free play. And this is not place-based learning. Play-based learning is adult-directed. It is aligned to a skill that will be developed, a skill, a language point, lexical set, different aspects, certain competences that our students need to develop. And we need to have various stations at with different activities in our classrooms, so students can rotate and do different things around the room, the classroom, in order to really experience different situations. We are going to see some examples so you can really feel what it is like to have different stations in the class. And in each of them, they are going to learn something. Teaching is going to be there. Maybe the teacher is not going to be participating actively, but he or she is going to be there. This is a very old picture I found. It has an unknown source. We trace the source everywhere, and it is not quite clear. And I am going to go over certain aspects that I would like to share with you. This could be parents, or as I mentioned a while ago, supervisors, all right? Just saying the children are just playing, but look at what students are saying or thinking, of course. Developing mobility of thought and practicing cooperation and follow. I'm developing a sense of, oops. I'm sorry. There. I'm developing a sense of story and enhancing my story comprehension. But the most important one, the one I would like to share, look at the teacher. I value play as an important medium for learners. I have developed a broad range of developmental goals with the focus on play. Play-based learning provides children with play experiences that enable them to develop and accumulate their own knowledge. Sorry, I really think that in this picture we can see different examples, and we really understand that this is not something that students do to have fun. They are learning different skills. They are developing different skills using maybe the simple present or the past simple or a conditional sentence, but in a different way, without the book. Before moving on, I want to mention the aspect, I want to highlight the aspect that as every single method or type of lesson that we incorporate in our classes, in our courses, doesn't mean that every single lesson is going to be based on, for example, play-based. All your lessons are not task-based learning. All your lessons are not going to be the traditional PPP. We are changing, we are testing, trying different things in our lessons in order to spice our classes, our lessons with different activities, with different things, but all of them with the purpose of developing learning, developing teaching, because we develop our skills as teachers as well. And also giving language in a different way. Okay, let's have a look at these 5 different aspects that learning goes through when play is happening within our classrooms. When an activity is experienced as something joyful that students are really enjoying, learning takes place. When an activity is meaningful for students, that children find meaning in what they are doing or learning, of course, it's something fun and learning is meaningful. When the activity involves active movement in the class, when we see that students are really engaged on what they are doing, when they are using their minds to think on how to solve a situation, learning is there. Learning is fun and meaningful as well. Then we have this word iterative, and iterative thinking is the type of activity we do to try once and again, and it doesn't matter how many mistakes you make. you are learning from every single moment you learn. Imagine, for example, learning how to skate. How many times are you going to fall from the board? Well, that it's iterative thinking, and it's a way of for students doing something that they don't mind doing them again. Imagine asking students to complete or to fill in the blanks with the correct form of the verb in brackets, a very old type of activity. Students really got bored. And I don't know if they could really acquire the correct form of the verb just by looking at that verb in brackets. Well, in this case, all the possibilities that they are going to have to make a mistake and to see that it's not this way, it's this other way, or let's try in another way, that's very meaningful for them. And of course, playing is socially interactive. Many of you mentioned that at the beginning, and learning takes place in that moment. So I think that these are 5 very powerful reasons to use play-based learning in our lessons. So far, so good? Yes? Any questions so far? Let's go ahead. No. Thank you for those thumbs up. Valeria Cortez raised hand. Would you like to type in the chat box something that maybe it's, let's see. Okay, good. Catherine from Italy, would you like to type something in the chat box? Running dictation, of course. Yes, that is something that students absolutely love. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's continue. As you can see from my slide, we are going to have a look at the different types of play. I can say, and I want to assert this, there are many different types of play. That of course, in this 50-minute presentation, some of them, and we are going to have a look at the ones that I really put into practice, and the trainees from the Tyler courses also put into practice, and we know it works. Well, the first one that we have here, it's dramatic play. What's dramatic play? We are going to see it in the following slide, but it's the role plays that we usually give students, but with a twist. Another one is small world play, using model figures. In a moment, we are going to expand this. The following is exploratory play, games play, and integrated play. So interview, in my opinion and experience, the ones that really, really work in our classes. Well, here we have examples of dramatic play. And of course, as you can see, is when young children are engaged in imaginative play and generally using dolls or all right, sorry, I got distracted. You can see that they are following a pattern. They seem to be in a pirate ship, or here selling things. But what's the difference? And you can tell me, well, all right, they can do this without devising different stations. We are going to give them tasks to follow. preparing something students can follow using props, maybe not complete outfits, but using props, toy objects, things that are going to take children to that imaginary world. And again, it's important to give them a task. We are going to see a specific task in the following type of play, but we are not going to ask them to go and play. No, in the case, for example, of the pirate, they need to find a treasure. And by using the telescope or by using that boat, they are going to go to a certain island and try to find that treasure, following different structures. As usual, the most important thing is to give them tasks to follow. Let's have a look at the other type of play. And this is called exploratory play. I am going to show you in detail what you can see here. Well, in this activity, okay, you can see two different suitcases, okay, with objects inside. And these suitcases belong to mysterious travelers that the only thing we have are their suitcases. We are going to provide the students with these suitcases, of course, in groups. Students are going to investigate what it is inside and see what else they can develop and find out and search for certain type of information. They're going to complete notes. And as I was saying, here you can see that there are two different suitcases. They are going to have access to technology to find out, to search for certain information if they want. Also encyclopedias, because although we don't use them that much these days in our classrooms, they are there. And later they are going to produce an account, written or oral. It depends on the age of the students. And then after they have produced that account and shared with the rest of the class, they are going to compare the account they have with the real information provided by that mysterious traveler. And they are going to find coincidences or differences. We are not saying that there's going to be a right or wrong answer. That is what they found out. And if they can support their views, that's perfect. At the end of the activity, after sharing all their ideas, we as teachers can give them an exit ticket. And look at what this one says. You're about to travel the world to share your important lesson today. What did you learn? What was the most important thing of the lesson? Write below what you can't wait to share with the world. Maybe your students don't write. They can do it orally in their groups and then share. I think they are very good activities where they can use all the type of information they have carried with them from other previous lessons and put them into practice. And you are going to tell me, what are they doing in this case? They are exchanging ideas. They are searching for further information. You are activating their critical thinking, because that's the way that students need to develop these strategies. We have seen 2 of the 5 types of play. Now let's go to small world play. Small world is, as you can see here, it's playing with those little miniatures. And if you don't know the site, do pay a visit to the site, the Lego Foundation. You are going to find lots and lots of very useful ideas that you can put into practice in your lessons. Of course, if you want to use the Legos your students have, much better. If not, as usual, you can adapt. But this small world play is what our students usually do when they are, our children usually do when they are very, very young, that each of the miniatures start speaking, okay? And it's something that it's really meaningful for them. Those things can happen in the garden, if you have a garden. If you don't have a garden, you can find it very useful, is bringing to the class some kind of tray, emulating a small garden, all right, with some real grass, some stones, and they are going to produce their own small world. Again, here we are developing creativity. We are going to see them engaged in what they are doing. And we are going to observe that their world is changing. I'm sure that many of you are thinking about, what about mother tongue? Are they using English or their own mother tongue? Spanish in my case, Italian, or in other places. It's something that it's one of the biggest issues that sometimes we ask. I am going to help you with that in a minute. Right. So we mentioned at the beginning is that play is rather structured. So I bring some things to the class and they play. Well, I want to have a look at this. Play-based and the lesson plan paradox. Shall we have a lesson plan or not? Of course, we need a lesson plan, but let's see this first. Play-based learning is developed or put together with different elements from the Montessori system and Reggio Emilia system. 2 main differences is that Reggio Emilia focuses on kinder and pre-pep education up to there. On the other hand, Montessori continues from kinder up to elementary students in primary before going into secondary school. Montessori is more structured, Reggio Emilia is more flexible and open-ended. But both of them share that task and activities really encourage problem solving and spark creativity. This is something that both systems promote. So we cannot forget that a lesson plan is a great asset to have an overarching vision or learning objectives in mind to ensure that the play experience that you are trying to put in practice in your classes, that experience is enriching and absolutely appropriate for your students. So again, remember those parents asking, all play and no work? Or the supervisors looking at the classroom and saying, are these kids really working? With a lesson plan, with a road map of your lesson, nobody is going to say that there isn't a purpose in your classes. Good. Let's go ahead now to see how to implement those ideas that we have just seen. One of the most important aspects is to make groups. Students are not going to work individually. It's not that easy to play on their own. So working in groups is something that students are going to really value. And we all know that in our groups, some students don't like working with other students. And if we tell them, student A, you are going to be working with student F, maybe they are going to complain. But if groups are made randomly, students will need to accept that. And here I have some examples, ideas to help you find a solution. These are the sticks of different popsicles that you can produce some kind of pattern, and you give the students the sticks and they have to find the matching pair. Or another possibility is, oops, here. You can place some color dots on students, on the different groups that you are going to have in that activity that you are going to have. And then you are going to give them these sticks with colors. So all the yellow ones are going to work in this station. All the green ones are going to work in this other station. And last but not least, we have got the socks. The ones who wash clothes at home, you know that we always have the single sock. So do try to have some socks, of course, washed. And students start taking socks and they have to find the matching pair. I know that you are going to tell me, okay, that's a little bit silly. It is creativity. Students are going to start looking for those matching pairs, but not looking at themselves, looking at what they have in their hands. And that's a very nice way of socializing. I'm going to rush because otherwise I'm not going to have enough time. Important thing, the environment. Remember I mentioned that we are going to have different stations to work in class? Well, right. No matter, as it says here, no matter what the ages we work with, there need to be specific areas designed for specific purposes. And it helps the mind of our students to learn about purpose and, of course, organization. I am not going to mix things here and there. Have a look at what I mean by different stations. The sensory area, where students are going to be able to exercise imagination, the size, what it's cool, cold, dry, use tools, and of course, social skills and share with others. Remember what we mentioned, the tray emulating a garden? That's a sensory area. Of course, you need to find those areas or to produce those areas that are going to be useful for the activity that you are going to carry out. A manipulative area where students are going to have the possibility of sorting, okay, or discriminating visually. Things, big things are in this basket, small things are in this other basket. Sharing, okay, again, social skills. You also need to have a reading and writing area where students are going to be able to find the necessary things for the activity that you were proposing in that moment, using pictures, remember what I said, having an encyclopedia without having the need to resort to technology. But of course, we cannot forget that we need to have a technology area. But remember, this is what our students nowadays have all the time. You can let them be aware, all right, become familiar what it is in the technology area, but do try to limit their use as appropriate. And I'm going to tell you something. Whenever I have different stations in a class, technology is the one that it is used the least, because they love having a look at all the other things that they don't usually use at home. So try to exploit the other type of play. Good. Now let's go to the teacher's role, because we said that apart from creating a lesson plan to work with a purpose, we have a role in our classes. Teachers are going to be the managers, and the manager is the one that manages resources, time, space, being aware of the risks they might have. Remember the kids in the pirate boat? An adult must be around. Of course, if you have a technology area, we need to be certain about internet safety. And of course, the manager is also responsible for checking all the things that they are going to have. The teacher is also going to be a facilitator. A facilitator is the teacher that promotes equity, the one that interprets children's play. The facilitator is going to be there to help students go out of certain ruts. And last but not least, the third role, and not least important, is that the teacher is going to be a player. It's not going to be a playmate. That's different. But whenever the teacher engages with children in certain type of play or activities in their play, or tutor what they are doing, students love it, because you turn into something more down to earth and not that teacher who is there at the front of the class explaining something on the board. But again, it's not a playmate. It's somebody who is participating in some of the activities. And you are going to tell me, so when to intervene? Because although play-based is guided by an adult, students are going to be working independently. So why to intervene? We are going to intervene when we need to enrich their work or sustain play. Because sometimes it says, teacher, we're finished. Come on, you can do this or that. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? As it says in the following puzzle point, is to help extend the play. All right, you finished with this. Why don't you continue with this other aspect? To mediate, okay, if there is some social problems that for sure are going to appear, okay, the teacher is going to be there mediating, adapting the environment, thinking about different aspects to consider, and to scaffold learning, okay? Those aspects are super important in the moment that students are working, children are working with the different activities. Fantastic. Now we come to closing a play-based lesson. Well, it's the traditional feedback, but in play-based we call it debriefing. And this picture really represents what debriefing is. It's when all students sit down together with you and they tell you how they felt. It's asking open-ended questions like, what did you enjoy most? How did you solve that problem? What was the best part of the activity? Didn't you like that much? What did you find most difficult? Debriefing is an essential part of play-based learning because it helps to bridge the gap between the playful activity and the educational value. Learning is going to be much more explicit for children if they can still tell you and maintain the joy of telling you, all right, how they are engaged. Of course, you can finish, I mentioned it a while ago, but it's important to finish with maybe an exit ticket, okay? Here you have the emoji exits for those students who cannot write, okay? Or the ones that they can write a little bit more and they can take a time for self-reflection. We are activating metacognitive skills. So this is something that we need to promote. Last but not least, we need to design inclusive play. So let's try to consider if you know your students and if they have any difficulties like mobility or problems related to language or their personality or those things, right? We need to create this rich mix of play opportunities, gauge the senses, okay? Make different types of space for learn in order to learn and share. Make sure that you know exactly the problem your students have, transmit their families how they felt during that activity you did, and ask parents as well, ask families, what does he say at home? How does he feel at home? That is super important to take into consideration. Inclusive play is not having a child with certain difficulties in a world that everything is adapted for the others. He is going to take part within his own or her own space. What to consider when planning? Well, this is just a checklist for you to have in case you need it. Remember, lesson objectives, location of play environment. I see that you are writing something. I am just about to finish and I am going to answer those things. Students grouping, remember, that's very creative and a very nice activity to have with the students before the activity in itself. Remember to check inclusion issues, resources for your students. Have everything ready. Don't start finding things around the school if you are going to have certain activities in class. Do try to have some trial activities with the specific resources so students see what you are expecting from them. Timing. And here is when I have this thing I mentioned. What about the use of L1 in class? We expect that students use L1. Of course, it's not a sin not to do it, but we have the possibility of giving students some kind of tickets, reminding them, can you say this can you say this in English? Do you find comfortable stop using your mother tongue? Without telling them in English, please, do try to have those little cards or tickets, go next to your student, give it to them, and show that they are doing something fine, but they can do it better. And it's something that you are going to set from the very beginning. This is a only English zone. If you are in favor of using the target language all the time. Think about the expected outcomes. Try to consider reflections by the children, how you will assess the skills, knowledge, how will you close the activities. Activities should always have a closure. Not because the bell rings, students should leave. You need to have a closure for all the activities. And how you will evaluate the whole activity or the environment. To finish off, I have a video to share, and I hope that you really enjoy it. I think you are not listening to the sound because I really forgot to activate the sound. Just a minute, sorry. There we go. Come on. There it is. Well, hope that you enjoyed it. This is the end of the presentation. And now, yes, I am open for any type of questions.
Excellent.
Simon, you'd let me know.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. I'm just going to step in very, very quickly here. We've got quite some good questions, but I just want to say thank you to start with some really interesting ideas here. And I really liked how you were focusing on the learning more than the teaching. You know, the more that they're doing things, the young learners are actually learning through play and learning through all these different senses, the touching, the smelling, the speaking, the listening, you know, all of these things, as well as, you know, getting away from the traditional grammar lessons that you mentioned as well. You know, it's exciting for them, and it really works, which is great. We've had a few people asking similar questions about resources, some of them based on your experiences actually, but one or two people, I think Alice said that she was working for an NGO with very low resources, and other people said that they actually move from classroom to classroom. So the idea of setting up so many tasks and then having to go to another classroom and do it. Do you have any advice for these people?
Well, right. In terms of resources, I think that the video tell us a lot. Just with some paper, maybe old newspapers that you can find around, or many different things that you don't need to go and buy. I always try to use and reuse things that we have at home and that we can take to class. I understand that the ones who are traveling from the backpack teachers, the ones who go everywhere, it's a little bit more complex, but you can find plays. Maybe you are not going to do exactly the same activity in one school and another. So maybe producing a set of things to have in one school until you finish working with that, and then taking the bag somewhere else, because it's It's like that. We don't have plenty of things, but maybe don't plan the same thing for two lessons, for two different classes in different places.
Got you there. And I suppose there's a bit of collaboration there. If you're working somewhere with other young learner teachers, you can swap resources and talk to each other about what you've got, who's
Exactly,
bringing what exactly. So it's all about collaboration, I suppose.
exactly, exactly.
Excellent.
Any further questions?
Yeah, so coming to the use of L1, which you mentioned, or mother tongue towards the end there, someone was saying that when it comes to the debriefing, is that a good moment for the teacher to perhaps use L1?
Yes, definitely. Because our ideas in that moment, the main objective of that session is that the students say from within how they felt. So if we are just going to ask students to say something like, well, I felt wonderfully because in this activity, no, that is not going to be possible. But that activity, that debriefing tells you a lot. And maybe you are going to find those things that maybe next class you are going to work with on how to express certain opinions. But
Mhm.
debriefing is something that we are always going to try. If they can do it in the target language, much better. If not, accept L1. That's very positive.
I guess it is quite tough language, isn't it? And I think one of the things I've seen when
Sure.
observing young learner classes, and just to get your opinion on this, so when they're playing these games, sometimes they are using their L1, of course, which you said isn't a huge problem. And as the teacher, you're kind of you're involved. You're a player, but not a playmate. And something that I've seen is that the teacher is always speaking the target language, i.e., English, and the students might speak to them in their own languages, and the teacher continues in English. And sometimes there's kind of a negotiation, and the young learners switch back into English, or they use a mixture of them. How do you feel about that kind of approach?
I think that that's absolutely natural. And it's not something that students are going to start using the target language overnight. It's banging on the same thing once and again and again. When they realize that the rule is that without imposing it, they are going to start using target language. But it doesn't happen overnight. The same as with writing, that they make certain mistakes and they write the words, spelling mistakes, I mean, and they write the word the same way as it sounds, well, all right, we accept it. Well, and I think that with the oral use of the target language is exactly the same. We need to stop getting so worried about those aspects.
There's a couple of people are also asking here. They're seeing the value in everything you're saying, and the focus on the learning, how all this play really helps. But right towards the very beginning, you have that very recognizable quote from parents saying, why are my children just playing, in these classes? How do you think we should deal with that? Should we talk to the parents directly and tell them what we're doing? Do we write to them? Should it be a school policy? What's your advice there?
I really trust meetings with parents. Here in Uruguay, we usually have them at the beginning of the school year and inform the type of things we do. Because otherwise, everybody is going to be giving their own opinion about certain things. And if we inform the way we are going to be working in class, I think that it's a way of telling them, don't believe that whenever we are playing, we are not doing anything. So I think that informing and having a very good communication with families is fundamental.
It's sort of always remembering there's that third person in the room, right? The teacher and the student, and then the parent is sort of there but not there at the same time.
I think that it happens all around the world.
Absolutely. I think lots of people are agreeing on that one there. Another key word that you pointed out there was the word iterative or iteration. And in terms of someone that's starting in this field of play-based learning, maybe they've done a few games in class before, but this idea of having lots of activities, what kind of advice would you give them for people that are starting here? Should we go out and have one lesson and just try everything? Should we try bit by bit? How
I
have you done this?
start small. That is the main thing. Start with short activities, one short activity, one small thing. Choose one area. Make groups. Start getting into those things. If you are going to try to have everything done at the same time, that's not going to be possible. So start small. And again, remember that they are parts of the different ways I am going to work along the course, and play-based is going to be one more thing to incorporate. But start with small activities, few materials, but with the same aim. All the aims that we can have with one activity is going to be absolutely valuable for you to give the possibility of trial and error, because it's that. All teachers have to go through that experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think on that point, then you've shared with us so many different ideas of what we can set up, how we can set them up, grouping people, lots of things to think about. In fact, so much in here that I would recommend everyone, even if you were here today, to look at the recording, watch the recording, which will be up within the week. That will be on the Trinity College London Transformative Teachers webinar. But I'd just like to end now by thanking you, Teresa, for your time today, for sharing your experience and your ideas. Lots for us to think about. And I'd like to thank everyone else that attended as well. We look forward to seeing you next month and wish you all a lovely rest of the day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you next month. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye bye.